Welcome to being an off-site General Assembly delegate. I'm Randy Becker, a member of the General Assembly Off-Site Delegate Task Force, and I'm here to help you be ready to fully participate in this groundbreaking process. You applied for and were chosen to be one of the initial group of delegates who will have a chance to not just observe General Assembly through streaming audio and visual, but to also participate in the on-floor debates on action items and vote on all business that comes before the General Assembly. Of course, you know how you would do all of that if you were at General Assembly in person. You would show up at the plenary hall, show your credentials, find a seat where you could see and hear all the actions. If you choose to speak on a topic, you would head for the appropriate microphone queue and be vetted by the usher there to be sure you were in the correct line and had something to say that had not already been said. If there were time enough and you reached the head of the queue, you would be recognized by the moderator and have 2 minutes to speak. When it came time to vote, you would raise your voting card up for the chair to see, and if necessary for the tellers to count. Well, being an off-site delegate is really not that very different. This film will explain how attending General Assembly for you will be very, very similar, and how easily adopted the changes will be. And oh yes, just as there are tellers and ushers on the floor of General Assembly to help you in the process, there will be support for you online as well. So let's get started. You have been selected to be an off-site delegate. In the notice of that selection, you receive details about submission of your delegate credentials. Be sure to follow those directions completely and immediately. Otherwise, you will not be given your off-site ID and passwords. This is the same as showing up at General Assembly having left your credentials back in the hotel or in Oshkosh, or never getting them from your congregational president. So be sure to submit your delegate materials. You will also need to pay your $50 registration fee. Once you have properly submitted your credentials and paid your registration fee, you will be provided all of the sign-in information you will need to attend and participate in each session. So at this point, you will be the same point as any delegate who has just received her or his delegate ribbon and voting card at their credentials booth at General Assembly. You are ready, but not there yet. And oh yes, again, your participation credentials, including the sign-in information, needs to be protected just the same as would be your physical voting card at General Assembly. Keep secure copies of your information. It is for you and you alone. The next thing you would probably want to do is to check out the schedule of business meetings and sessions at General Assembly. You can turn to either the master grid, which is available at uua.org/ga/programming/14599.ashtml, or you can see the URL on the screen, or the day-by-day grid that's available to be downloaded to your portable devices. That's eventmobi.com/uuaga2011. As an overview, here are the basic sessions, and remember, these are all stated in the United States Eastern Time Zone. Now, along the way, what you're probably going to do is look at the schedule of items that you can participate in off-site, and you'll set up your own schedule of sessions you plan to attend. Just as in the physical plenary hall, there are different levels of action a delegate might take. It's just the same off-site, so let's review those. The vast majority of delegates at General Assembly simply watch and listen and vote. Okay, let's be honest. They also make quiet side comments to those around them, and sometimes they sit together as a delegation from a congregation so they can interact as the business proceeds. We'll come back to that later. If all you plan to do is watch and listen and then vote, you need only log into the streaming video audio of General Assembly to get started, and that can be found through our main off-site portal. That's delegate.uua.org. In fact, that's a very important address you need to keep in mind. Delegate.uua.org. That's the doorway opening your off-site experience to everything that's happening at General Assembly. So that's a place to start whenever you sign on to get ready to take part. But since you have taken the trouble to register as a delegate, you probably want to do more than watch and listen. The next level of interaction off-site is voting. Now here comes one of the first quirks in the off-site system. In many ways, if you're watching the streaming audio and visual from the UA website, it's like watching it from miles, miles, miles away. And so there's a time lag. It's kind of sci-fi in that you are seeing seems to be happening in real time, but by the time you see it, it's already anywhere from several seconds to several minutes old. Why? Well, every electronic switch and routing decision for your internet connection means a small amount of delay, which in time adds up. For example, although I live and work in the concrete public, way down at the southern tip of Florida, most of my connections go through a server in Australia. So the next step to participate by voting is to get on the same timeline as the General Assembly floor. How do you do that? You phone into our audio bridge, which is a giant connection of telephones, like a giant conference call, but with special features. And it can supply the sounds of General Assembly almost exactly in time with the actual proceedings. This way, when a vote is called for, you're in time with that call. So how do you get to the audio bridge? Well, you'll either call 530-216-4294. That's a toll call. We'll get back to that in a moment. Or you call 877-572-7988. That's toll-free, but only from the United States and Canada. However, if you have some other unlimited phone service, most of us seem to have that today who are on the internet, things like Skype, Vonage, Magic Jack, etc., we ask that you use the toll number 530-216-4294, because it won't be a toll call for you, and in the process you'll save the UUA some money. To call into our audio bridge, you'll need to follow the instructions sent with your registration materials, but to review, you will need to call and then follow instructions for entering your unique ID information. For those who like analogies, placing this call is the equivalent of being in plenary hall to hear the announcement of a vote, as opposed to being somewhere over in the exhibit hall and having to run back to the plenary hall hoping to get there in time for a vote. Now, as you peruse the agenda of business, you will need to decide which votes are the one that concern you and for which you want to be in real time on the plenary floor. For those, you want to be on the audio bridge call. For many of us, it's every vote that counts, and you never know when amending or changing vote may be something that grabs your attention. Hint: once you are on the audio bridge call, you will get a sense of how far out of real-time sync your audio-video stream is. When I'm in these situations, I tend to watch the combined audio-visual image during much of the presentation discussions, but having the telephone connection established so I can go to real-time as the vote approaches. I watch for signs that we're moving toward a vote and judge accordingly on when I need to be listening solely to the phone audio. Now, in order to vote, you will need to have your computer, and this could be a desktop, a laptop, a netbook, a smartphone, an iPad, logged into the voting site. The login information will be part of the registration information you receive. If you do not receive the information to log into the vote, you will not be able to vote. So, what you want to do is to sign into rwpoll.com and then have your login information. Right now would be a good time to pause this video and take a look at a document we've created about this whole process. That's the Off-Site Delegate Guide to Voting. It's a Adobe PDF file, so you should be able to read it on almost any device. The voting site takes virtually no bandwidth. In other words, it can easily be opened and be running in the background without disturbing other things you're doing on your computer. It will not clutter up the connections to a central Wi-Fi hub at a congregation, for example. To vote, when the voting is announced on the phone audio feed, you're hearing the moderator say, "It's time now to vote." You'll also see a note about voting on the voting website. You will vote on your own internet device according to the instructions on your screen. Now, the results are almost immediately recorded and available for the moderator to share with the plenary. So let's review. To vote, you want to be listening to the proceedings on a phone-in audio line that is in real time with the plenary. You do that by calling the audio bridge number. You'll want to be logged into the voting program in advance of any vote. When a vote is announced, you will follow the instructions on the voting screen of your internet device. But wait, there's more. Some of you may want to take part in the debate on an issue. No problem. But first you need to be connected to the speaker's line. You do that by being connected to the audio bridge we've already talked about, and when you want to talk in a discussion online as if you were on the floor, you press 1 on your telephone or your dialing screen. That puts you into the plenary hall, so to speak, getting ready to speak. At this point, you need to know where it is that you want to speak. Is it a pro comment, a con comment, a procedural one, or an amendment? To understand the functions of each of these, you need to take a look at the rules of the plenary, and they can be found at this address on the Internet. This address is also referenced off of your off-site portal. When you press 1 while on the audio bridge, an off-site usher will answer and will follow the same procedure as an usher in the plenary hall would, verifying that you want to speak from the right microphone and that what you have to say is relevant. You will then be placed in a virtual queue. Listening to the procedure on the phone call audio, you would listen for the moderator to recognize you. You would then give your name and location. For example, "This is William Ellery Channing from the Federal Street Church in Boston, Massachusetts." And then you speak. Be mindful of your 2-minute limit. Now, you might be wondering what people in the plenary hall will be experiencing. Your voice will be heard just as if you were at one of the microphones in the hall. Instead of your image speaking up on the larger video screens, if you're at a physical microphone, there will be a map of North America with an indication of where your congregation is. When your time is up or you are done, you can stay on the audio line to continue to listen to the meeting, but you won't be able to speak anymore. Or you can go back to the streaming audio-visual or the audio bridge real-time listening, whatever you want to do it. Well, that's about it. So let's review. To simply watch and listen, use the General Assembly audio-video streaming feed. Where is it found? On the off-site portal. To be part of the discussion and vote, you will want to be connected to the real-time audio bridge by calling into that connection and following the prompts with your identification information. To speak, you will need to press 1 on that phone call so you can be interviewed by an off-site usher and placed in the queue for the appropriate microphone. To vote, you will need to have the voting module open on your own internet device and be logged in. When it's time to vote, follow the instructions on your screen. Now, some of you may be wondering about the mini-assembly process. These discussions and perfecting subsessions of the main plenaries will be available in a listen-only format for off-site delegates. You'll call in the same way to the audio bridge. As an off-site delegate, your involvement in the decisions around the items considered in mini-assemblies comes in the main discussion and action which will occur in the plenary sessions themselves, where you will have an equal voice. If you want to be more involved in the process of the mini-assemblies themselves, you would need to engage in the discussion boards and chat room provided at generalassembly.info. This is not part of the official off-site GA project, but simply a support service of fellow Unitarian Universalists. Now for some questions. What if something goes wrong? We will have a technical support team available by internet and telephone. They will be able to assist you with technical questions about our programs and procedure. They will not be able to help you with technical questions about your personal equipment or your internet connections. Yes, I said I would get back to the fact that in plenary hall, people are often making private comments to neighboring delegates, and sometimes small groups of delegates are assembled in the back, quietly planning strategy. The UUA is not providing the virtual equivalent of all of this, but we have been informed that at generalassembly.info there will be both discussions on each business item and real-time chat for anyone, off-site delegates, on-site delegates, others, to engage the issues. This is the place to go for the internet version of those private conversations during any plenary. Also, as this process unfolds, a frequently asked page will be available for quick reference on technical issues. Check it out at the off-site portal, which again is delegate.uua.org. Remember, on Wednesday, June 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Alaska, and 3 p.m. Hawaiian Time. There will be a test run of the system. It is our expectation that all off-site delegates will be online for that hands-on experience. The full details of that are also included in your off-site delegation registration packet. Well, I think we are all ready for GA and the off-site experience. So again, welcome to the future.